What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna clean and grease this wheel. In one of my videos before, I cleaned and greased the wheel of the Ciao. Now I got a comment from this guy asking me to show the footage, not sped up. No time lapse, he wanted full explanation, he wants to see how I do it. Now I don't have the original footage anymore, so I'm gonna have to do it again. But instead of doing it again with the Ciao wheel, I got this old wheel that I got from the attic and I'm gonna do it on that. Now it's all the same principle for every bike, cleaning it and putting it back together. So let's get into it. Let me get the wheel. It is very dirty. Now there's not a lot of specialty tools, only actually one that you're gonna need for doing this job. So the tools you're gonna need for this job is a spanner to remove your axle. You're also gonna need a low profile spanner to get that special nut off. You're also gonna need some calipers for some measurements, a magnet to remove the ball bearings in a safe way, and to re-grease your bearings, of course, you're gonna need some bearing grease. A handy tool to get your grease into your bearings is a syringe. You can load it up with your bearing grease and then you can apply it in a much easier way. First of all, what I want to do is want to disassemble the whole wheel, get the ball bearings out. Everything needs to be laid out so we can clean the wheel. So first off, get these nuts off of here, the end nuts, the nuts that you clamp on the wheel. And before we do anything else, we just want to take some measurements that will make our life much more easier when we assemble the wheel. I'm talking about the extruding axle. On one side we want to take that measurement, and on this wheel it is 18. So let's just write that down. On the brake side, 18 mils, so we don't forget that. And now we can disassemble the whole wheel. Now the best way to make sure you don't misplace any parts, when you take them off, lay them down in order. Brake part, this goes here. Then we have a small washer and then another nut assembly. Now right here there's two nuts, and that's where the specialty tool comes in. This is like a specialty bike tool. It's basically a wrench like this, but it's much thinner, so you can get on the underside of the nut and then you can undo it. That's the only specialty tool that you're gonna need. Put that nut into place. Now this lower nut keeps the tension on the ball bearings. So when you loosen this up, all your ball bearings come loose. Here is the locking nut. And now you can pull out your axle, but be careful. All the ball bearings are loose now. Make sure you don't drop any. The best way or the safest way to get them out, get yourself one of these. It's a magnet on a stick. Now you can pull all the ball bearings from one side. And now you have your standing alone rim. To be safe, just count your ball bearings from every side. Here we have 10 and here we have also 10. We are not missing any ball bearings, that is really important. Now let's get the other side of the axle disassembled. Now when you are taking the last piece off, we want to do something, check something. If the threads are evenly on both sides, and on the non-brake side it's 63, and on the other side it's a little bit longer, it is 67. So remember that the thread count can vary on your axle. So we know the brake side is the longest side. So now we have every single piece. I'm now gonna clean it. I'm not gonna show that because it's just cleaning. Soap, water, degreaser, whatever you need to use to make your wheel clean again. Clean the ball bearings, clean the axle, clean the nuts, clean the rim, clean the brake, everything. And I will come back when everything is clean and we are ready to assemble it. So everything is cleaned and degreased. The best way to clean the inside of your brakes is with wheel cleaner. It comes out very nice and clean, nice and perfect. So that is a quick tip for you guys. So now we're gonna start assembling back the axle and the bearings. So let's get into it. We're gonna put the wheel to the side for now, and we're gonna take our end nut, our brake, our washer, the locking nut, the nut where the bearings goes, and the axle. Now, as we done before, let's check the threads, which one is the longest part. And this is the long side, this is the short side. So this is the brake side. Okay, we have our parts, and what we now need to do is screw everything on it. Get the locking nut, the first one, now the washer, then the brake, and now we can measure our distance. So we have enough threads on both sides. Just check it. Yeah, that's 18. Now pull the brake to the locking nut and screw down the other one. Okay, this is on. Now we can undo this. Now we can take our specialty tool and lock these two nuts together. And now we have our spacing. Now we can completely assemble the whole brake part. Now we have our brake part with our axle. And now it's time to bring in the wheel and the bearings. Now I'm using bearing grease. You have to use bearing grease. Bearing grease handles heat a lot better than normal grease, so make sure you use bearing grease. Now I got a little syringe with a little bit of bearing grease already in it, but I'm just gonna fill it up a little more. Just gonna take a screwdriver, get the bearing grease in there. Okay, we loaded up our syringe with bearing grease. Now we're gonna pre-grease the space where the bearing balls sit. Just squeeze it all around. Make sure you have enough grease. Also for the other side. That's enough. Now we can put in our bearings. We counted them at the beginning of the video, so we know we need 10 bearings on each side. And the last one makes 10. Now I'm just gonna put some bearing grease on top of it. Now let's flip the wheel over. The grease will make sure the bearings stay in there, but still you have to be careful so none of them fall out. And now let's load up the other side. Okay, that's 10 in there. Put on this side some grease as well. Okay, our bearings are in. Now it's time to install our axle. Slide it in. Make sure you don't hit any bearings, that they don't fall out. Flip it over. And time for the next step. Let's take the other bearing side, screw it all down. Just make it hand tight for now. Let's put on our washer and the other locking nut. Now let's spin the wheel around so the grease can go everywhere and the bearings will sit where they need to be. When you do this, feel for resistance in the axle. When you feel some pulling or some hiccups, you will need to replace the bearing balls itself, but this looks pretty good. And now comes the hardest part, getting the play out of there with everything nicely secure. Now to make life a little bit more easier, we're gonna take off the locking nut for the brake side, take the brake off and take the washer off. And now we can take out the play in the axle. It looks pretty good, but I feel a little play. Just wiggle it around, tighten up the first nut, and now let's tighten up the whole locking nut system. Feel for play, no movement, but it's still smooth. Let's check it. And the wheel turns nice and perfect. No grinding noise, no nothing. And it keeps on spinning for a long time. Do this a couple of times so everything seats well. Now let's check for play again. Nice and solid, no movement, and spins freely. Now we can reassemble the brake again. Tighten it down. And when we spin it, it spins nice and freely. And the brakes work. So now your wheel is back together, your bearings are greased, everything looks nice and clean, rotates perfectly. In the description I'm gonna put some links where you can get the bearing grease. I highly recommend JMPB-PARTS. They offer a nice service and quick shipping. So that is gonna be it for this video, guys. Be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram. And if you're not already subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.